Welcome back. I was streaming a little bit earlier, but then I got a dishwasher delivered to my house. They gave me a four hour window. They came like right in the middle of a short 30-minute stream, but that's okay. If you were not here earlier, in the description of this live stream, I do have the link to the first live stream. It was only about 15 minutes in, where I was kind of setting up how I do my hybrid pre-algebra lesson plans. So if you'd like to go take a look at that, give you a little bit of context of what my hybrid situation looks like as well, and what I've done so far before I dive into planning for my next lesson. So let's go ahead and jump into the actual page and some of the resources that I use. This is my learning management system. I mentioned this in the last live stream, but this is kind of where I house everything. I've got a handful of actual Google Sheets that I use for my lesson, basically like my outline of what we're going to be doing each day, which is super handy when you're doing distance learning, and now even more so if we're doing hybrid. Just one place where all the students can see what you're doing in class. This is what it actually looks like when I embed it on the home page of the Nest. Blackbaud is what runs the Nest here, and you can see this goes right now. I have this showing. Where is it? I'm showing all the way back from the beginning of the school year, but earlier I had this hidden because I don't want students to have to scroll all the way down. So what I'll likely do here, I was just kind of showing this in the last stream, kind of like generally what's the flow of what we're doing each day. But let me hide all of these so that way when my students go to the home page, they are not seeing everything from the beginning of the year, but just seeing like the last week up until now. They recently did a mastery assessment. We talked about that. I actually don't have to pull that up again. And where I left off last time in the previous stream was going through what my actual guided notes look like. I use Edpuzzle for these videos that students will basically follow the instructions. They make a copy of this. And then they watch the video and then fill it in. And in the video, I'm literally filling in the same document, showing them how to insert equations, not using separate apps or not using handwriting stuff, because a lot of them are not going to be printing this out. They're going to be filling them out digitally. And so I'm trying to show them how to fill it out digitally as we go, just to keep it as simple as possible for them. This is for my 7th graders. One little thing here, you'll notice that it says use template. The way that I actually get this, you probably, what most teachers do is they will share this document with the students, and you'll see that at the bottom back it says /edit. And when the student gets it, they're not gonna have editing privileges, but sometimes you get students asking for permission to edit, and you're like, no, it's not. You don't need to edit. You need to make a copy. And so they go to File, Make a Copy of, and then you see a ton of them with this little copy of in front of what they're doing. And when they turn it in, that just says copy of, all of that stuff. So the one way around that, two ways around that, just a little tip if you're a Google school. When you're, instead of doing /edit up here, if you notice, if I do /copy and hit enter, it forces them to make a copy. They can't even ask for permission to actually use your version, which is nice. Or what I like to do instead of copy is I do template. I erase where it says copy. I erase where it says edit. I do template /preview. And then this, it allows the students to see the document. And then when they click on use template, it basically creates their own version of this document. Now, the reason I do this instead of copy is because I like to show these when I start class, whether I'm in person or whether we're remote. I like to click on these documents and show the students exactly what they're going to see. I don't want to do the click on this when I'm presenting, like saying, like, you guys are going to start 3.2. I don't want to click on this and then it take me to the copy page and then I end up making a copy for myself just to show them. I would like to be able to click on this. I could also have the tab open as well. I would like to be able to click on this and then show them here what they're going to do and then say, you'll just click on use template and this will create your own version. And as they finish the notes, before I continue, if you are here, let me know what you teach. If you are a teacher or if you're a support, whether you actually do teach middle school math or you're just kind of getting some insights and some inspiration here, or you're just like curious what's going on in a middle school hybrid classroom, let me know in the chat. When they finish these lessons, when they finish these videos, I do keep track of it in Edpuzzle. It takes them to this page. They can't fast forward in Edpuzzle, and then I can see who's watched the video and who hasn't. Edpuzzle is nice because you can embed questions. Something I have considered doing is because it says, try the following 2 problems on your own first, then watch video 1. I could, at the beginning of this, before they can even move on to watch the video, I could put something in there where it says, what were your answers for problem 1? And then they have to put in their answers and then watch the rest of the video. I don't do that because I'm like, I'm probably not going to actually go and look at all of their answers before they watch the video, because that was really, I mean, it would serve as pre-assessment data, but I don't have time to go do that. So I'm not going to actually make them put something in. I could make them do it and then me not actually look at what they actually put. I don't know if I really want to do that. So right now it's just like, just watch the video and then make sure that you're filling in the document as you go. And then when they do watch all of the videos, I can see if they've watched them as well, but they will go to this progress tracker. And then they click on the progress tracker. The first column has their names, but it is hidden right now for obvious reasons. And they put a little X, so student number 4, they put a little X once they've completed the notes. I've even linked to the notes. Why I linked to the notes, I don't know, because you just want to link to everything everywhere, because the students will be like, I don't know, where did I find that? I don't know where to go. And that's just the nature of teaching distance learning, teaching hybrid, is like as many places as you can get it. Even this document right here, it's linked on this homepage of our learning management system. Just tuning in, check out the cool work you're doing in the live streaming world. Really enjoying getting some insights into the life of teachers right now as well. I appreciate the support, Jeff. I appreciate you tuning in as well. Jeff is a fellow live streamer, fellow lover of all this tech as well. But as I was saying, that the bulletin board's like the homepage, it's linked there, but I even make a topic page, which is kind of like every lesson, that if students want to go back and kind of see the resources there. I used to I'll even show you how this evolved throughout the year. You can see on the first one, I had a link to the student notes, and I had a different Nearpod lesson, which was another resource they could use. And some of them, I even had the slideshow right here, and then the Khan Academy assignment. And then students were filling out the notes, but then having to come here and then having to click on the Khan Academy assignments. It was too many times of just kind of going back and forth in between different places. And so it has now been very stripped down to, these are the guided notes, the videos, the Khan Academy links, the assignment. Everything is in this document, which is the same document that is linked on the home page. And so just trying to make it in as many places as possible for the students, to make it as easy as possible for them. And so that is there. They click on, they type in an X once they've done that. And then it says, okay, the next thing is the Khan Academy, the order of operations. And so with my lesson plans, I always kind of look through and see, is there a Khan Academy exercise that really hits on what I'm wanting them to do here? So adding and subtracting rational numbers. And so I went to khanacademy.org. It's one of my favorite websites for students to get practice on an actual activity. And then I just go into the search, and then what was the lesson? Adding and subtracting rational numbers. See what comes up. It says adding and subtracting rational numbers practice. That's great. I can click on that. I can see what it ends up looking like. This lines up. This is Common Core. We don't teach the Common Core at my school, but it is Common Core 7th grade. So I'm like, this is probably what I'm looking for. Now, I am seeing there's a percentage here. Some of these students got percentages last year. Some of them didn't, because the year was weird last year. And so I would kind of think twice about using this one, because I want them to practice the fractions and the decimals. I don't want to throw in percentages there. And so you'll end up seeing, what did I end up assigning for this one? So this one, the decimal one, I'm not worried about the decimal content, the decimal work. They can use a calculator for that. I'm more like you can even see where I'm like, okay, if you are going to use a calculator for a problem like this, what would you type? Because like if they just start putting minus signs and negative signs all over and then hitting enter, there are some skills there that they need to learn. And so those are the skills we practice as far as decimals. But adding and subtracting negative fractions, that's where I've found that in this unit, in this lesson, students kind of struggle with. And so I did assign that Khan Academy, and it opens up. We can kind of see it. If you've never used Khan Academy, it is very simple to invite students into a class and then assign them activities, and then you can actually go in. It grades it for them. And here is an example of the problem that they may have to do, which is really in line with what I'm wanting them to practice for this lesson. The wonderful thing about Khan Academy is if they're stuck, they can watch a video or use a hint. You can see they got to do 7 problems. They can do this as much as they want and keep redoing it until they get 100%. I'm fine with that because it's a small formative grade, and if they want to get the practice and they need the practice to get the 100, by all means do that. And then the kids that can get it and do it in the first 7 problems, they don't have to do 25 problems like when we were in school, where it was like every other problem 1 through 50, and it's like, I kind of got this after 5 problems. So it differentiates. The students that need more practice and would like to get the higher grade can get that practice and continue to do it until they get the higher grade, whereas those who kind of get it right off the bat don't need to continue to do that. And so if they do get stuck, they can watch a video. If they watch a video and then figure it out that way, they can still get points for completing this problem correctly. If they use a hint, though, they don't get points for completing it correctly because they did get a hint. And so it shows 2 videos directly related to the content, and then they can click on get a hint, and then maybe they can figure it out after 1 hint. Even if they got 1 hint, you can see this is filled in gray now. But it will show them, sometimes it'll show them a different method than what I showed them, but sometimes this method is a little bit easier for them to understand, so I'm okay with that. So you can see it says, okay, I need to find a common denominator of 12. I had to turn this one into 36/12, and then it shows the improper or the mixed fraction, either of which they could keep. So they want to do that first. That's kind of like just practicing that skill. And then once they finish that, they go over and then they say they've completed the Khan Academy. Now, some teachers don't like, I'm going to do more videos and live streams on this self-paced where the students are kind of going at their own pace and then tracking it on this spreadsheet so I can see where everybody's at. Some teachers don't like this public. I'm okay with it being public because you can see, well, students 6, 7, and 8, like they're not getting much work done. And yeah, that's public record, but I'm not actually sharing any grades here. This is just a public, let's see where you're at. And perhaps it might be helpful to see where other people are at. Might be discouraging, but it also, I don't know, maybe the kids that are not, I have a feeling the kids that are not filling this in are not actually even seeing this. And so sometimes I will project this to say like, hey, I give them a little bit of an out. Sometimes I'm like, don't forget, some of you may have already completed this and haven't gotten a chance to fill it in. So if you have completed it, go ahead and fill it in. So I'm not putting anyone on blast with this. But when they finish the Khan Academy, they put an X right there, and then they're on to the discussion problems. The discussion problems are really just practice problems that I have created that we'll sometimes discuss. This is new for me. This must do, should do, and aspire to do. Originally, everyone had to complete all of the actual problems, and I just some of then I had the problem of like, do I really want to put a really challenging one on there that I know is probably going to trip up a lot of students and they're going to spend up a lot of time and just get really frustrated and really kind of, anxious about not completing the assignment? But what about the kids that kind of finish early, finish a whole class period before everyone else? I want to provide something that is engaging and meaningful and applicable to this. I don't want to just give them more work for the sake of giving more work. And then they're like, is this graded? No, it's not graded, but it's just good to get the practice. And then the students are like, I don't know if I want to do that. So this is new for this lesson right here. I've got the must-dos where this whole assignment is worth 25 points. It's a formative grade worth 25 points, not a huge part of their grade, but to get all 25 points, they do have to have these notes filled in. They do have to have, well, the Khan Academy is a separate grade, but if they want to get at least 22 points, all of the notes need to be filled in, and they have to complete the must-dos. The must-dos are all these problems right here. If they want to get 24 out of the 25 points, they need to also include the should do's. And if they want to get all 25 out of 25 points, they should include the must do's, the should do's, and the aspire to do. I'm not sure about these point values. I may make this where if you do the must do's, it's like what would 20 or what would 80, like I would make it to be 80%. And so maybe 20 out of 25 points or 16, somewhere, maybe not as many points of just completing the must do's. So I'm going to play around with that, but see how this works out. And so you can see on the must do's, this is a fun question to do, because a lot of students can find the right answer because they found there's a calculator online that can actually tell you how to do mixed numbers, adding and subtracting and multiplying, and it works it out for you. I don't really care if they know the final answer. I want to know if they could show me how they could get that final answer, maybe if they didn't already have it. And so I give them the answer. I basically take the power of the calculator away, and I'm like, okay, now show me how you can get that answer. And I've had students tell me like, oh, that's actually a little bit more frustrating, because when I do it, I don't get that answer, and I know I'm wrong, but I don't know what I did wrong. And so I really have to go back and analyze, which I feel is a lot richer experience than just saying, oh, I just got an answer. I don't know if it's the right answer or not, but I'm moving on. So it does cause a little bit of a deeper dive, and then I can see if they get it, because they were like, I don't know, I just did it and I got 1 and 11, 12. Well, what did you do? Well, you just the 3 and then the 5 and they can't really explain themselves. And so I'm like, okay, let's break this down. There is a way we can do this, and it helps me know whether they get it or not. And then this one, instead of like the decimal ones, I'm like, I'm not as interested if you can just punch numbers in the calculator. Let's look at this problem. A negative number, and I'm adding a positive number. So is my sum going to be positive or negative? So they're going to have to go back. Integers was our first unit this year. They're going to have to go back to their integer. It's like, okay, we've done some integers since then, but let me see if I can refresh this. Is the sign going to be positive or negative? Well, the larger absolute value is positive, so it's going to be positive. I've got more positive numbers than a negative numbers. And so are you going to have to add or subtract the absolute values? Well, one's positive, one's negative, so I'm going to have to subtract the absolute values, and then the difference is going to be the positive version of that. And then they can actually do that on their calculator. There's no way of me kind of knowing if they just put this in their calculator and they know how to use the negative sign in their calculator, and then they got the answer and they're like, oh, the answer's positive. But I'm just trying to create as much opportunity for them to conceptually understand what is going on. Same with this fraction one, and then same with this decimal one. So those are the must-dos. So the should-dos, they're a little bit more challenging. You can see I've got a minus negative, so it's like they got to remember if you're subtracting a negative, that is the same thing as adding a positive. It's negating the subtraction, but you're adding to a negative sign. So there's a lot going on here. There's converting to improper. There's making it into an addition problem, because I said turn this into an addition problem, because that was a big skill we learned about, turning all subtraction problems into addition problems, which helps illuminate why we can turn multiplication problems or division problems into multiplication problems. And then whether or not they want to add or subtract the absolute values and find the actual sum. And then there's a word problem. The aspire to do, this is taken from a resource that I've been using a little bit more because I think they fit really well in these aspire to do sections, but it's called Open Middle. And it's a lot of problems like this where you kind of get these blanks and then there's these operations, and students have to fill in those blanks with numbers. In this case, with the integers -5 to +5, but they can't repeat any of those numbers, and they have to find an expression that has the greatest absolute value. And so they got to think through like, okay, how am I going to make the biggest number? Where am I going to put my negatives? I've got a fraction, I've got multiplication, I've got more multiplication over here, and it really begins to spark some kind of like really thoughtful ways of you can start assigning numbers randomly, but then you might notice some patterns and be like, oh, should I have a larger number on the denominator here or a smaller number on the denominator here? I know I should maybe, since I'm subtracting this thing over here, I want to subtract the least amount, so maybe I should multiply whatever's in here by the smallest number that I can. And so they start to kind of have those kinds of insights and everything like that. There is a hint right here to kind of move them along the right way. I would love to be able to spend a whole class period with with all of my students doing this one, and that's something I've kind of struggled to decide whether or not, because these are more like puzzles, and I feel puzzles are. I'll actually keep it. I was gonna do this so you can see me full screen, but I'll keep it on the screen so the context of what I'm talking about is there. The puzzles, I think, appeal a lot more to all of my learners, all of my students, and sometimes maybe a student who's like, oh, this stuff's boring, but they're like struggling to kind of get it. But this, like, oh, that's kind of interesting. This might spark their curiosity, which is really one of the biggest things that I'm trying to do in my classroom. But I also want them to like. It might take a whole class period for some of them to get through this, and there's going to be some conceptual things that they pick up along the way. But I also want them to know like how to do these types of problems real directly, and it's the balance of like really diving in and spending time on a really meaty problem, but then getting practice with, smaller problems that are not as complex, to get that repetition and that repeated exposure. And then trying to do that in really the shortest amount of time. I'm not going to spend 2 months on this lesson. I'm not going to spend 2 weeks on this lesson. Maybe, I don't know. It depends on how fast it takes them to get through all these lessons, these videos and stuff. But the resource that I use to get these is by a teacher named Robert Kaplinski, openmiddle.com. And you can search. What I usually do is I just search when I'm, you can either search by grade level, or I think I just searched rational numbers maybe and saw what came up. Ordering rational numbers, operations with rational numbers. And so this one's kind of, getting to like their understanding of fractions. So this one could have been used as well because, well, it's only 2 through 9, positive 2 through 9. So this would have been a good one too. And so I don't link to this page because it gives them the answer, but I'll usually take a screenshot and then copy the hint, and then put that as part of my aspire to do section. Let's go back to it. And so this is the final, to get 25 out of 25 points, they do this one. And I was giving these types of problems to students previously once they finished all of this, but a lot of the other students were still working through it. And so I gave them this like on a separate document, and they worked on it. And then I checked in on a break. How's it going? Oh, I'm still working on it. I'm just trying random numbers. And there was no way of me really knowing what they ended up doing. They didn't turn it in. And so I had the idea to actually include it with the notes, make it a small portion of the grade. So that way, if a student doesn't get to this final section of it, they can still get 24 out of 25 points, or 22 out of 25 points, depending on how much they complete. And so as they finish these discussion problems, they go back to the progress tracker, which I haven't linked on the bottom. I should have done that. They go back to the progress tracker, and then these are actually answers from the previous lesson. I record a screencast. It's not on Edpuzzle. They don't have to watch it, but I record a screencast going through the first problem answer, the second problem answer, and you can see from last lesson. And let's take a look at these problems. If you're in my third period, hopefully you have copied these new versions of the problem. And then I walk through it and how to do it. And so they do that, and then they rate their comprehension on a scale of 1 to 10, saying what it is. I'm still confused on cube roots. These are from actually the last lesson right here. And so this lets me know who to check in on. And this is a self-assessment. And so I'd let the students know, like, if you don't get it, don't put it 10, because then I'm going to think like, oh, all these students get it, we're ready to move on. If you're like, I'm kind of confused, or I got it wrong, but I got it right, but I don't really know how I got it right, like, tell me that. And it was honestly not as hard as I thought, and I caught on really fast. I'm reading up here because I don't want it to all like bleed over or wrap around or anything like that. And so once they do problem number 1, they go to problem number 2, check the answer, and then rate themselves. Problem number 3, check the answer and rate themselves. Super confused. So this gives me the feedback that I need to kind of check in with them. And it's a lot more efficient than going over these problems as a whole group. When we were in person, like a lot of times I would I would approach these discussion problems a little differently depending on the lesson. Sometimes I would have students do presentations on them, say like go up to the board and tell me what you did for number one, and then they have a discussion. I don't say whether they're right or wrong. That's just harder. It's harder to do in remote. It's hard to do in a hybrid, and so we do have discussions over problems, and I talked a little bit about that in the earlier live stream at the beginning. But it's been like since all of them are at like different places. I found it a little bit more efficient use of time to put these answer keys here. They can rewatch the answer keys if they want, and then I can see what they did. And so that's kind of an overview. I know I said this was going to be lesson planning with me and me planning my next lesson, but I didn't realize like how long it would take just to show you like this is how my lessons are looking. And I think this is probably actually a better use of your time to kind of see a completed lesson and what went into it as opposed to watching me type out stuff. But those are some of the resources that I use and that I go to kind of create a lesson. And then when they're ready for the quiz, you can see 3.2. I don't know if I've made a quiz for this one yet, but let's see. If I go to my drive and I go to pre-algebra, that's probably super small on your screen. Pre-algebra. I have all my old units, and then I created a new folder for my distance learning versions of those units. And so if I go to distance learning unit number 3, I don't have a mastery quiz for 3.2 yet. You can even see 3.1, what I was talking about, where it was like a separate document that I just shared with students that I don't even know if any of them actually did. But the 3.1, what is this one? Is this the mastery assessment? Or that might be the answer key. Here we go. They'll make a Loom video, a Loom screencast, going through these problems, explaining what they did, how they know the answer. And so that helps me know whether they got it or not. And then before they do it though, they do say, I'm ready for it, or like, I need to check in with you. And so that's one unit. It usually takes 1 to 2 weeks to complete a unit. I guess I'll be able to see how on task the students are when we're back in the classroom. We started hybrid last week, and we continued through this. There was a moment that I was like, this is very odd, because we ended up going outside and a student had some questions, and I didn't want to like hover over her because of COVID-19. And so she's sitting like at a picnic table, like off a little bit. And then I'm like, we're both on Zoom. And then she's like, do I have to record the screencast? Can I just go over it with you? And so she has her computer, and I can see her over there, and she's holding her little document, her written work, showing me on the screen like what she did. I can see her over there. I can see her on the screen. She's kind of got a soft voice, so I'm listening with my headphones. Like, man, this is so weird, but it works, and we're able to stay socially distanced, and she's able to walk through her work with me, and I was able to give her a grade right then, as opposed to me saying, okay, recorded Loom screencast and turn that in, because we were, it was done during class time. And so that's generally kind of what a unit looks like, what a lesson looks like for me right now. It is a work in progress, and I'm excited to keep refining it. And I don't know if excited was the right word for that, but I am continually refining it and trying to make it better, to continue to do this in a hybrid context. And so at the end of every live stream here on the Middle School STEM Teachers Lounge, I like to donate about $50 to a fellow middle school STEM teacher on Donors Choose. A lot of times I will kind of scout on Donors Choose beforehand to see if there's something that I'd like to donate to. And this project is Mrs. Hayes from California, Seaside, California. She is wanting to do some supplies to do some collaboration work with her students when they return to the classroom, really to get them off the computer. So she's doing a way better job of me at designing an environment where they're off the computer. I don't know if they're going to be hybrid or not, but like when my kids are in hybrid, I'm like, all right, everyone log into Zoom, because I don't know how to teach at-home kids and in-person kids without everyone being on Zoom. So I can actually complete this project for $59 because this is cool. Chevron is donating as well and contributing to it. So I do want to contribute to Mrs. Hayes. Let's finish this up so she can get the resources she needs for her middle schoolers, give to this classroom. If you do have a Donors Choose account, by all means, let me know. Send it to me. Right now, this live stream isn't huge, so it's not a big deal if you want to just DM me on Instagram. My Instagram is @GibsonEducation. And then I'll consider it for the next live stream. But let's see. I'm going to use a previous message and change this. Hey, Mrs. Hayes. I'm a fellow middle school STEM teacher, and I have a show on YouTube. I'll say a live show. I'll say live stream. A live stream on YouTube where I take time to donate to another middle school STEM classroom. Love what you're doing. Love what you're doing to try to get the kids off the screens and give them a meaningful experience in your class. In experience in your class. And that's all I'm going to say. Post my message. And not a monthly donation, but now she can do that. So this has been kind of a fun thing to do, and she's a first-year teacher, so that's super cool that she's just out there. She's advocating for her kids and requesting the things that she needs in the classroom. It does kind of suck that Donors Choose has to exist in that districts and stuff don't just provide teachers, but I'm just hoping that this will support my fellow middle school STEM teachers in what they're doing. So little Zelda treasure for Mrs. Hayes' class. But thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. If you're watching on the playback here, I hope this was useful and helpful as you're designing for your hybrid or distance learners in the middle school math classroom. But I'll be here again next Wednesday. Maybe it's spring break, so we don't have our nanny. So my baby doesn't go to sleep until then. I'll figure it out. But for now, I'm going to schedule for 8:30 tomorrow or next Wednesday. Maybe it'll be 10 o'clock. I'll post something on Instagram and Twitter. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you learned something today that'll give you a more meaningful and engaging experience for your students in the classroom and a more fulfilling teaching experience for yourself. And I will see you in the next show, like this live stream, if it was helpful, and I will talk with you soon.